So with that, we're going to go from the global to the local. So our next panel, which Chris is going to moderate, we're going to focus on smaller companies and smaller processes, but that can be duplicated globally. So Chris, I'll hand it over to you and your wonderful next panel of speakers.
Great, thank you. Hopefully the co-hosts are coming up for this session. I see you and I see me, Stephanie. So as long as they're coming up, that will be great. I'll go ahead and at least start telling you about our session. So anyway, good afternoon. Thank you for hanging in there with us. It's been a day full of information and we've got more to go. So it's our last plenary and the final session of the day. This is supply chain and zero waste purchasing in small business. And all three of our panelists are zero waste entrepreneurs who have created businesses that embody and embrace the 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit, also known as triple bottom line. They're going to address how we can reimagine our supply chain to harness reuse, to increase access to less waste generating goods and services, and reimagine the workplace through non-ownership of workspaces so that we can shift perspectives and inspire increased collaboration, all helping to establish zero waste circular economy practices across the globe. So it's another hour-long session. We have the 3 panelists, and then we'll do a brief Q&A at the end. As you have before, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. Some can be answered there, and based on time, we'll see what we can answer in the verbal Q&A session. And for anyone that wasn't here in the morning, I am Krista Tournay. I'm a Bay Area-based zero waste consultant and educator and work with Zero Waste USA, one of the main coordinators of this amazing conference. I'm going to make a quick plug for Zero Waste USA because we offer a zero waste certification program. I'm one of the instructors, an affiliates program, and other courses and webinars and tools that support our collective work to move away from waste and towards a resource recovery driven world. So definitely please visit us at zwusa.org. And again, there are some really great free tools that you can look for that help you do waste characterization, looking at divertibility analyses and things like that. It's really a great resource for free. So our panelists, and have they arrived? Yes, they have. Okay. Our panelists today, and again, we've got bio slides up, but if you don't catch all the details in their bio slides during my quick introductions, you can go to our website, look for them in the speakers. You'll see the full bios and you'll see their LinkedIn information. So first off, we're going to have Matt Sineski, and Matt is the founder and CEO of Iteran, and that is a marketplace for packaging reuse based in the California Bay Area. Following that, we'll have Stephanie Reny, who is the founder and owner of Feel Good, which is a refill retail store that opened in Berkeley in 2017, again, California. And then wrapping it up, we'll have Amy King, who is a well-accredited professional and the co-founder of Good Coworking in Dallas, Texas. She's also an ambassador for Super. And so from there, I'm going to say, take it away, Matt. There we go. And you need to unmute.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay, yeah. So thanks. As Chris said, my name is Matt Sineski, and I've spent the last 18 months building a platform for packaging reuse. And this talk reflects some of my learnings so far. If you can go to the next slide. As I started getting into the circular economy for packaging, one of the first subtleties I came across was that we recycle, or unfortunately landfill, a lot of products that are still perfectly good from a functional point of view. So what do we really mean when we say something has reached the end of its life? These 2 bottles illustrate 2 different scenarios. On the left is a single-use water bottle that we're all familiar with that actually kind of collapses in your hand as you drink. And I think we'd all agree this bottle needs to be recycled after it's empty. And this bottle has been designed with an expectation of single-use plus recycling. And so the amount of material used has been minimized, which is why it collapses as you drink. It's been designed for this use case. On the right is a bottle that's used in Coca-Cola's refillable bottle system in Brazil. It's also a PET bottle. It looks a little sturdier. And in Brazil, its end of life might be when it's damaged or looks really bad cosmetically, but you can imagine getting a reasonable number of reuses out of it. But what happens if I go to Brazil and I bring this second bottle back with me in my suitcase? How many times can this get refilled in the US? Of course, the answer is 0. In the US, this would be a single-use bottle, and it would probably be considered over-designed for that scenario. So end of life depends not just on the design of the item itself, but also on the infrastructure around it. And I think that's a key insight to have when you're designing the bottle, but also when you design the recovery system. So if we can go to the next slide. And so we're all here because we have an interest in reducing waste. And I think we're all familiar with the principles of circularity. We want to put the materials we recover to the highest value use, which may be one of the many R's: reuse, resale, refurbishment, recycling, or what have you. And from a high level, you'd think that the market would set a price that reflects the value an item has to buyers, and that this would tend to result in the item finding its most valuable use. And of course, you can find in various places the market prices for recycled materials. But look what we find when we compare reuse versus recycling of some basic packaging items. Selling a packaging item for reuse is worth between 10 and 100 times more than selling its raw material. And yet, at least in the US, post-consumer packaging reuse is extremely rare. When we recycle durable items that could get reused, we're essentially just setting a big pile of cash on fire. We're destroying value. And so the question is why? And I think all of us here know the answer. It's because we don't have the infrastructure to do it. Again, it comes down to infrastructure. So next slide. So how do we motivate people to build the infrastructure for reuse at the scale that we need? I would argue that it's critical to make reuse a profitable business. If it's a good business, people will do it. And as we saw on the last slide, we've got a lot of value there to work with. I think there's an important place for legislation here, but legislation alone won't get us where we need to go, in my opinion. So if we want to create a successful reuse business model, the first thing we have to understand is that achieving a high number of reuse cycles is very difficult. The plot on the left is just basic math that shows that the average number of cycles you should expect at different recovery rates. And you can see at 75% recovery rate, for example, we're still at just 4 cycles on average. And to get to something like 50 cycles, we need to reach a 98% recovery rate. In practice, reaching greater than 90% recovery is, in a general case, is quite difficult. And of course, we all have the intuition that a lot of important metrics, including various measures of emissions and also economics, get better with more cycles and higher recovery rates. The plot on the right shows the average emissions of 2 generic examples: a so-called single-use item, which is durable enough to be reused, which is the solid pink line, and an item specifically designed for reuse, which is the dotted pink line. Emissions is in quotes here because this could apply to carbon, solid waste, energy, water usage, or whatever your preferred metric is. It could also represent costs in dollars. And so 1.0 on the vertical axis here is the normalized value of the emissions or cost of single use alone. We assume that our so-called single-use item can be reused and that the recovery process has only 75% of the emissions that it took to manufacture the item originally. And we assume that our custom-made reusable alternative is initially 50% more costly in terms of emissions or dollars, but requires only 60% of the baseline cost for recovery. And these are just made-up numbers, but I think it's a reasonable scenario, and we can see that in this specific case, reusing the so-called single-use item, if you can do it, is always better than single-use alone. And it's even better than the custom reusable up to about a 75% recovery rate. The custom reusable isn't the best option until you get over 75%. And if you're under 50% recovery, it's not even better than single-use alone. So what this means is that if you're planning to implement a reuse system with a more expensive, more resource-intensive container, you're at risk of doing worse than single use in terms of emissions and in terms of dollars if you don't reach a high enough recovery rate. And my guess is that this risk is a big inhibitor for the build out of the infrastructure for reuse. There's a chicken and egg problem where the system doesn't work unless everyone's bought in to get that high recovery rate, but people don't want to buy in if they don't see it working. This dynamic is what Iteran is trying to change. We're trying to overcome this chicken and egg risk so that the infrastructure can be built with confidence. And we do this by starting with reuse of existing single-use items so that you have a viable business even at very low recovery rates. Next slide, please. What many people have done to reduce this risk of a low recovery rate with more expensive containers is to rely on closed systems with relatively tight boundaries. So this might be a physical boundary like a university or a corporate campus. They might be electronic boundaries that track the custody of the container with an app. This is what's shown in the figure on the left. The challenge for this type of closed system is to figure out how to expand those boundaries while maintaining a high recovery rate. Again, with the risk of doing worse than single use if you don't get enough of the containers back. The alternative that Iteran is pursuing, shown on the right, is an open system with large or no boundaries, which may operate at a low recovery rate initially. But this can be viable in terms of economics and emissions for products which are currently sold as single use. The challenge for this type of system then is to improve the recovery rate while maintaining open boundaries. You'll notice that both of these systems end up in the same place, and I think both are very valid approaches. But I would argue that the strength of the open system is twofold. First, it can be profitable and reduce emissions over the full spectrum of recovery rates, including very low recovery rates, and this reduces risk when building out infrastructure. Second, with an open system, you're always using the same business model as you scale, versus a closed system where at some point you've got to figure out how to open up those boundaries. So Iteran is pursuing this open reuse model. Next slide, please. What Iteran is doing is building out a marketplace platform to support open reuse of packaging. We're still small, we're very early in this process, but we've zeroed in on what I think is a perfect demonstration product, which are these HDPE can carriers, which you mostly see on beer cans, but of course can be used with any canned beverage. And so why are these a great product for our demonstration? Of course, standardization is hugely beneficial for reuse. And these can carriers have a high enough market share among craft breweries that I'd argue they've become sort of a quasi-standard in the industry. It's also really important for packaging to be reused locally, close to where it's collected. There are about 9,000 craft breweries in the US. They're in every state, and large cities may have a dozen or more, so there's always a local buyer. And finally, a lot of craft breweries already reuse these informally, even if they don't, they're aware of other breweries that reuse them. And so they've already gotten over that mental hurdle of accepting reuse, which is really helpful. So Iteran is building a nationwide marketplace for these can carriers where anyone who wants to make a business of collecting them can post them for resale, and beverage makers can find and purchase them for reuse. Next slide, please. And so an open system is great for all the reasons that I mentioned, but reuse in general isn't going to reach the global scale that we need without addressing a simple fact, which is that manufacturers make money by selling new things. And so currently they're incentivized to make sure their products become obsolete quickly or are difficult to repair or go out of fashion or use other tactics that we're all familiar with. We need to incentivize a different business model for the manufacturer. So what we've built into the Iteran marketplace is the ability for manufacturers to receive royalty payments anytime their products are transacted for reuse. If they set their royalty equal to their typical net margin, they are making as much profit from reuse as they do from single use. We break the dynamic of having to sell new things to make money, and we incentivize design for reuse, marketing for reuse, technical support for reuse, and we open up an opportunity for the manufacturer to really add value and support their community of reusers. So this slide shows what a typical transaction would look like for one case of can carriers. The collector who posts them for sale receives the base price from the buyer, and the collector has a profitable resale business. Iteran receives a transaction fee, the manufacturer receives their royalty, and when the buyer pays the total, they're still getting a discount versus a new item. everyone walks away from the transaction better off economically. I want to be very clear that every one of these items that we sell for reuse means that a new one doesn't need to be manufactured. So we are absolutely reducing the amount of material produced. And this approach is material agnostic. If your preference is for glass or metal or bamboo or whatever, everything I just said still applies. Reuse is still hugely impactful, and an open system has all the benefits that I just described. Next slide, please. To launch the marketplace and build some momentum, we're currently acting as a seller on our own marketplace. But I want to emphasize that it's an open platform that anyone can use as a seller or a buyer. We've been collecting these can carriers using a store drop-off model, putting collection bins in brewery tap rooms, liquor stores, bars, and recently refill and zero waste stores, including Feel Good, who you'll be hearing from next. You can see our drop-off locations so far on the map, and we're looking to expand these aggressively in the new year. We also just did a small pilot with Ridwell, in which they actually collected can carriers from their residential customers for us to resell, which I think is a really exciting alternative recovery channel. Since March, we've collected over 28,000 of these can carriers and sold back almost half of them to breweries so far. So that's about 785 pounds of plastic that didn't need to be manufactured. The great majority of what hasn't sold will definitely be sold. We are actually supply constrained at the moment. When the breweries we work with make a purchase, they usually clean out our inventory. I'm also happy to announce that Iteran just received a $100,000 SBIR award from the EPA, so we can expand this program to support 230 craft breweries in Northern California. Of course, we're also very excited to continue onboarding independent resellers who sell many different kinds of reused packaging products. Next slide. So thank you for your attention. You can see all of my contact information here. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to work with us, if you have questions, or if you just like to chat. I love connecting with people who are working on reuse or circularity in any form. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. Very exciting. Great comments going on in the chat too. I'll leave them to you to answer what you can. There's some small ones. Stephanie, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, this is my slide. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Yeah, next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to present Feel Good. So I'm the founder and owner. It's a zero waste store. I don't know if all of you, if you've all been in a zero waste store before. Basically, it's a store where you can buy low waste and zero waste products. You can bring your own containers and refill them, and which avoids buying a new one. Often, these zero waste stores are small local businesses, and very often they are women-owned. You can find places with food or no food. I'm in Berkeley, and in the Bay Area, we're pretty lucky. We have so we are in Berkeley. There's a store in Oakland, another one in San Francisco, one in San Jose, San Mateo, Lafayette. So pretty much everywhere in the Bay Area now. And total, there's over 100 stores in the US, and it's growing. So I put a link to a recent article by Bloomberg, which gives more information. And if you want to look if there's a store near you, you can go on that website, leaderless.com. It's the best directory I know of. So there's a lot, like it's listed by state and city, and maybe you'll find something near you. Next slide, please. So Feel Good was started early 2017. It was the first refill store in the East Bay. At first, I started online. I'll present after, but with like a milkman system. So online home deliveries, and then I opened the store 2 years later, in March 2019. And then we moved to a larger location in August 2020. So during the pandemic, but it was a good time to move. We're based in Berkeley, so we have the front store and we continue online orders. We're very focused on home, bath and body products. We don't sell food in bulk because we're lucky to have many places here, many grocery stores who already sell food in bulk. And we're a team of 6. So what type of product can you find in our store? My favorite ones are the solid products like shampoo bars and solid dish soap, because you don't need any packaging, maybe a little bit of paper or cardboard, but that's pretty much it. And you don't need to clean any bottle as well. We have compostable products like floss and kitchen brushes. We have a lot of reusable products. And finally, we have the bulk with a lot of refillable products like liquids and powders. Next slide, please. So in the bulk section, you can see a picture. Total in the store, we have about 450 products, maybe a little more now, and which includes over 100 products in bulk. I really wanted to focus not only on the zero waste part, but also on the what's in your products. So I work with brands that make safe, non-toxic, and sustainable products. We don't have, so usually in zero waste store, you do everything by yourself. Not in ours, we refill all your containers. It's just faster, and it also means less cleaning for us. We use a tiering system, Filljoy, another small business that provides zero waste stores with that tiering system to know how much product you get in your jar. And we also have a pilot with Stop Waste. You can see 5 automatic dispensers on the picture to the left in the back, and which is also very useful and saves us a lot of time. Next slide, please. So for home deliveries, we still do that. The way they work, it's really like the milkman, and that was the original idea. So we deliver orders in these reusable black bags that you can see on the picture, in glass jars, typical mason jars, for example. And then at the next delivery, people return their jars and they get new ones, and we clean the empties and we reuse the bags. We reuse pretty much everything we can. The containers are cleaned by one of our partners, Dispatch Goods, and then we refill them in our store. Next slide, please. We work with a lot of other zero waste businesses. So with Matt, we just started. We have our box to collect can carriers. Filljoy, so our system for all the bulk section. Dispatch Goods, they clean our containers, and we are also a drop-off locations for their to-go reusable to-go containers. The Silo, Planted Table, and Swelter, 3 local businesses that also provide food in reusable containers. So we're all in the same idea of reusing containers. Next slide, please. And so regarding our supply chain, because like what you just saw is zero waste for our customers, but obviously we also want to be zero waste. And so I'm very proud to say that our supply chain is almost free of single-use plastics. We, like I would say 99% of the companies we work with, we get their products in plastic-free materials, like we get cardboard and paper, lots of packing peanuts, refillable containers and bags. We also make a point to reuse everything when we can, or donate to the local community. And then when we can, we recycle. We're lucky in Berkeley to have a paper and cardboard recycled, a different recycling bin, which helps with recovery. And what else? Yeah, and then when it comes, and I'll explain right after, but when it comes to the plastic buckets that we get with our products, most of them are refilled. It's a closed loop system. We're able to ship them back so they can be cleaned and refilled by the brands we work with. Next slide, please. So that's the brand. These are the brands we work with. So what we call closing the loop. Again, like, to me, like, this is, as Matt explained, we need a whole infrastructure to make this work. That's why my favorite products still are everything that can be solid. So you don't have to have a closed loop, and you eliminate a lot of hassle, I would say. But for some products, it's just inevitable. You need a packaging. So these, like, for example, today we work with brands like Dr. Bronner, Little Seed Farm, Meliora, Meow Meow Tweet, Pure Trojan, Zatic, Plain Products, Rudin Splendor, Rebrand, Tap Tap, and LMS Apple. I really want to highlight their engagement to reduce waste and to work in closed loop with us. And so we get their products in, like, all kinds of different containers, pails, like the picture you can see, cube containers, or for Plain Products, we have their products are already packaged in aluminum bottles that we then ship back to be cleaned and reused. We get also bags, like large plastic bags with a spigot at the end, and these also can be cleaned and refilled. And so, yeah, all of these go back and are able to be cleaned and reused. Next slide, please. And so last year, we were able to avoid more than 167,000 single-use plastic, and we're hoping this year to reach 200,000. So we'll see in January. Next slide, please. And so the last part, I wanted to talk about challenges, because as I said, right now, it's really the beginning of a movement, because there's like about 100 stores in the US, so it's not that much, but it's growing. But in order for it to grow and to work to be like financially sustainable, we need an infrastructures. We need many things. So the first thing that we need is to have a larger offer of eco-friendly bulk products in that closed loop system. Today, the brands I showed right before, there's probably a couple more, but that's it. So we need more of them to be on board and work on that closed loop systems. It will give more choices for customers and more flexibility for stores like us. And also, if I can purchase my products in California and not having to have them shipped from the East Coast, that would be great. Another thing, and Matt talked about it, is to have infrastructures for the whole logistic of collecting, cleaning, and refilling all these containers. We're very happy to work with Dispatch Goods. They're based in San Francisco, so we're very lucky to have them. We need more companies like them to make this whole process easier and cost-effective. A third challenge is equipment. We were obviously not like a typical retail store. We need equipment to make this work, equipments that are efficient, that save us time, because there's a lot of labor involved in all this. And so we need pails and pumps and dispensers that are really made specifically for refill stores. It will help us increase efficiency and decrease costs. And finally, change the public perception. I think that today a lot of people have the idea that zero waste is more expensive and inaccessible, which is true for some products. They are pricey. Many of them are not a necessity. But really what people need to understand is that a lot of zero waste products actually can save you money and be cheaper than what you can buy in a regular store. Another thing is that we often have the question in the store. People are confused. For them, bulk means Costco or Trader Joe's prices, which obviously we cannot provide. And so that also needs to change. Next slide, please. And so what's next for us? Potentially a larger store in 2023. We'll see how it goes. And really want to focus, like add more environmental education workshops. And the reason is because we have a lot of people who come to the store and the concept is so new. They just don't know how it works. They just don't understand. And some people need like more demo of how they can shop zero waste. So we'll try to do that next year. Also events to present other zero waste businesses. We work with really amazing partners, and I think that people really need to know about them. And again, like we need to show people, our community, that there are solutions that exist, and yeah, that there are many ways to reduce waste. And maybe more. We'll see what 2023 brings us. You can contact me as my email. Always happy to chat about zero waste and ways to eliminate single-use plastics. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Phil Good's been an amazing partner and contributor to the community, the Berkeley community in Albany, right next door, for 5 years now. And as you say, we don't know what 2023 will bring, but I don't think we all knew what 2020 would bring either. So we never know what's going to happen. So I guess being resilient and nimble, those should probably be the words of the year versus, I think it was gaslighting this year. So to the dictionary edition. So yeah, we wish you lots of luck in expanding. And on to hear what Amy's doing down in Dallas. Thank you, Stephanie.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, I'm Amy King, and I'm the co-founder of Good Coworking in Dallas. We were founded in 2018 because I saw a need. I saw a need in the marketplace. Larger co-working chains were emerging, and they were not addressing sustainability or even talking about it in any way, shape, or form. And corporations are scaling back on their office footprint these days, and this is where co-working comes in. We are the first LEED Gold certified co-working space in the world focused on inclusive sustainability powered by solar. And I emphasize inclusive sustainability because it's imperative that we lift all boats in making the world healthier and more resilient. Next slide. Our purpose is to model and grow a responsible business culture that has a net positive impact in the world. And we're a small business, but we like to incubate these practices of environmental and social responsibility for business in over the 100 growing businesses in our space. And then as their businesses grow, they take these practices with them and make more of a positive impact. It's a pay it forward situation. Next slide. We're all about the certifications. And here's what we've accomplished so far. We got the gold certification for our building. I had a leg up because I used to work for the NZWC National, so I knew enough to be dangerous. And we have achieved super bronze, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the super certification in a bit. While some certifications can be expensive, I believe in them because they provide rigorous third-party review and standards to ensure compliance. And the good news is that super is affordable. So this is a tool that you can use from day one of your business. Also, certifications eliminate a lot of greenwashing and false claims around it. Sometimes there's an importance that is critical to be rigorous. We're also going to pursue certified B Corp and WELL, which picks up where we leave off and addresses more of human health. Next slide. So part of what I'm talking about today is SUPER, Single-Use Plastic Elimination and Reduction Certification for Business. I'm an ambassador for the organization, and I connected to SUPER through Tracy, who's a co-founder and also a partner in a co-working brand across California. And that's when I found out the other co-founder, Manuel Makeda, was involved in a documentary film that had already changed my life called Albatross. Next slide. So SUPER's journey began when Manuel was part of a documentary about the Albatross birds. And these birds are incredible, and they're ground zero for 13 plastic species in Midway Atoll.
Amy,
Yes.
Amy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're having some static, and I can't tell if it's if you lean back or lean forward. It's like a fuzziness comes in. I don't know if anyone else is
okay,
hearing
I'll
that.
try to not move. Okay.
Don't. I can't tell. I've never heard that interference quite like that, but just if there's anything if you are familiar with it and can do anything, but otherwise.
No.
Okay.
Let me
keep going.
I'll keep going and try to not move. So Manuel worked on this documentary, and Midway Atoll is at the ground zero for plastic pollution. And he made a promise to a dying albatross bird that he would do everything he can to help them. And subsequently, that is why he founded SUPER Certification. Next slide. These beautiful birds mate for life and are feeding their babies plastic. I recommend watching the Albatross documentary, which is on YouTube and available via their website. Next slide. As you can see, the birds are feeding their babies plastic, which is just absolutely heartbreaking. Next slide. So the scale of the plastic problem is unfathomable. Look at these numbers of what is reaching the ocean. Next slide. And despite our best attempts to curb plastic usage, the problem is growing with more investment in plastic, and it's just up to 180 billion by 2050. Next slide. This data is from the United Nations Environment Program report from 2021 called Drowning in Plastics. And as you can see, only a small amount of plastic is being recovered. Majority of it is going to landfill, being incinerated, or exporting to make it another country's problem. Next slide. And some of you may have read the 2022 Greenpeace report, which is an update on their survey. This is for the US, and it shows a similarly bleak situation, estimating a dismal recycling amount of 6% for post-consumer plastic materials. The American Chemical Association did push back on Greenpeace's numbers a little bit, and so the rate was slightly higher, but it's still atrociously low. Next slide. And while workplaces don't seem like an obvious place to focus on first for ending climate change, they're ubiquitous across the world. I was just blown away by this statistic. Something we don't give much thought to, the low 10. It's a poignant example of wasteful materials produced by businesses. And this is just a crazy amount of pens. So if you're going to do anything for your business, don't make branded pens. At least use pencils, and you can also do refillable fountain pens. Refills cost only $14 for a higher end pen, so it's a great investment. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit more about SUPER certification. We like to call it the kindergarten of certifications. It's really achievable and is about replacing plastic. SUPER starts your business on a journey, and we like to also call it a warm-up to true certification. It's about replacing plastic with items that have a dollar amount behind them for recycling. So highly recyclable solutions is what SUPER does. And it benefits your business in many ways, from engaging your employees to growing your brand. And then, as you know, in Europe and other countries, there are circularity mandates in place already. So SUPER can help with legal and ESG compliance. Next slide. These are the current SUPER certification tiers. Definitely, this is idea of what SUPER's trying to accomplish, reaching these percentages of plastic elimination. And we have had some growth challenges. The team is going through an iterative process right now to improve the certification. and provide more upfront guidance so that it's less time intensive, both for the business and to achieve certification. We've been spending to date a lot of time with each client figuring out their product elimination and replacement choices. So we're working to streamline that process. Next slide. And super pricing is based on the number of occupants at your business in your office. So we're working to keep it affordable, which means the cost can be under $500 for a lot of companies, which is great. Next slide. Super can also provide a bespoke process for larger clients, which is more of a strategic engagement. And for example, the state of Washington is a current client of Super's right now. Next slide. So that was Super. I want to share some areas in my business where we're working toward material reduction, including plastic reduction. And we're in the hospitality business in coworking, so we're all about convenience. However, we only provide reusable items in the kitchen, in our shared kitchen, and we also like to make it fun to get engagement with a variety of really fun mugs, like the wrong burgundy one. So you can choose one based on your mood. Next slide. I learned about a study when I was working on our LEED certification that shows that bin proximity does not result in better recycling behavior. Next slide. If you take away the desk side bins, it forces people to walk to a centralized bin and there's less cross-contamination. So we've already taken away small bins from our meeting rooms and we're moving forward with moving them from all the desks and offices. That is a little frustrating for our members, but we tell them it helps them get their stuff and helps them avoid sitting for too long. Next slide. Another small way we're working to reduce plastic is we instruct our cleaning crew to reuse the bin liners whenever possible. Sometimes they're too messy, but this is just something that has had pretty decent impact in our large space. Next slide. The good old plastic water bottle. Despite our best efforts, because we don't offer any plastic water bottles in the space, I still see cases of them in the space. And this is because a lot of our member companies are social impact organizations and they hold a lot of offsite events where they're outside in the heat and they want to provide water for everyone. So we're trying to move them toward using those large sports, the old-fashioned pitchers that you saw at soccer games, football games, and reusable water bottles. And we also have a green meeting policy for our co-working business that we require all members, whether they're doing one of our meeting spaces or a bigger event rental, that's comprehensive. And I also make it available to any business. We have a link to it on the Super site, and I'm happy to share it with anyone. Next slide. Some other challenges in the office, the good old trusty Post-it note, which I love. I learned from Tracy that a great alternative is having paper notes and using this really neat washi tape, which is made from Japanese paper. It's cheap and will break down, and you can tape it up on the wall easily. Next slide. We are also using a lot of whiteboard markers because we're in the meeting business, and we found this brand Austin brand refillable pen. Our challenge has been that people are still throwing it out. They don't read the label that says, please do not throw away. It just shows that we're so trained in our society to use and toss that folks don't even contemplate that they're supposed to toss them when they're empty. So we're working on that change as well. Next slide. And here's some examples of what other co-working spaces are doing. Simple things like refillable hand wash. You can work with a refill store. Next space in Berkeley and they use glass bottles with spray cleaning throughout the space. Refillable tea bags is one of my favorites because you may or may not know that a lot of the tea bags that we use that we can buy at the store are actually plastic. So we're putting plastic into boiling water, which is not good for our health and bad for the environment. And takeaway bento boxes. having them around for people when they have leftover food in the kitchen. It's not uncommon that we're asked for Ziploc bags, which we do not provide. So this is a great alternative. Next slide. So I just want to conclude with inviting you to have a conversation with Super. Their website is super.ngo. They can help weave Super into your business's material reduction strategy for 2023. And also, if you work in an office, you can also be the advocate for pursuing Super by talking to your facilities manager, because this is a great place for a business to start if they haven't looked at anything close to circular. Next slide. And lastly, let's collaborate. I think everything that we're doing, everything discussed at this conference is a team sport. And I pride myself on community building. I love working with different organizations on growing businesses and programs focused on sustainability. And I'm happy to share my slides, any resources, links, etc. And please connect with me on LinkedIn and or send me an email. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we figured out as a talk about collaboration and collective community, it's probably your earbuds. There's some interference running. So just so you know, we did closed caption it for anybody. So I think I caught most of it. So sorry about that, but I think that sometimes the Bluetooth fails us. And I'm going to go ahead and start asking some questions. Thank you very much, Amy. It was really good. Let's see, back to Matt. Matt, one of the questions was, are there other products out there that fit this model as well as the can carriers do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you know, fit the model, you know, as they are today, and as this you know, as this business model takes off, I think there's a potential for many more things that are like very close to being reusable, but they just need a little tweak, and you know, we're providing the incentives to do that. One of the things I'm looking at very closely at the moment is bubble wrap. Actually turns out to have many of the same, you know, same sort of properties as the can carriers in terms of economics, and you know, it's used everywhere. And you know, if we reuse it, we don't have to make new stuff. So. Okay.
And do you see? So, how else do you see this expanding? Like, what is the next possible item that you would target?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, as I think somebody in the comments was asking about like bottle refill. And so I think there's actually a ton of opportunity for glassware of various types. And that's actually a place where I started looking initially, but the infrastructure was just so hard. It was, particularly in terms of like narrow neck bottles, the bottle washing facilities are not there. You know, things like getting labels off, you know, in some cases really hard. And so, you know, again, you know, when the incentive is there, and people can make those little design tweaks, you know, process tweaks to make, you know, a washable, reusable glass jar, for example, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can open up.
That's helpful. Good to hear. One last question for you. I'm going to kind of go down the list. So what do you see as the best case scenario for the impact this model can have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the idea of providing manufacturers with, you know, an alternative, you know, profit, you know, revenue stream, profits that is equivalent to what they get from making new stuff really has potential to make a big shift in the way people think about, you know, commerce in general, and even, you know, beyond packaging. You know, I think about electronics or apparel or furniture or all kinds of stuff. You know, I think this model is really powerful, and you know, I don't see other people doing it. So I think kind of the sky's the limit.
Great. I guess you have to always look for opportunity when it presents itself. Then you'll know.
That's right.
Okay. Hey, Stephanie. So Couple things about you dealing with your suppliers. Like the biggest challenge is not what they package their shipments in, because it sounds like you've got a handle on that. But what about the actual bulk packaging, the types of containers that come in? If you do you vet them in advance to see if they'll do takebacks on some of these? Do you have to? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that process, because I know you're looking upstream all the time.
Yeah. Right now, like recently, I've contacted a couple more brands. There's a lot of brands out there that do make really good products, but many of them, they don't want to take back their containers, their gallons or their 5 gallons buckets. I think the main reason is because they compare costs and they say, well, maybe it's more expensive for me to take them back and wash them than to buy something new. Which is why we need something in the middle, or something like a company where they're located that could do all that cleaning, so these containers can be reused and refilled, and at a competitive price. So that's what Dispatch Goods is doing with some brands. Yeah.
And so, yes, and I think the washing centers are becoming, more and more important part of the process, both in reusable foodware, in the packaging for foodware.
Yeah.
It seems we're hearing about more and more opportunities and entrepreneurs that are establishing places to wash, and not just one thing, but several kinds of things.
It's more, as Matt was just saying, it's much more complicated for bottles. And today, people, when they go to the store, they get a bottle of hand soap. Like, they used to the bottle with the pump. And like the refillable alternative today is really hard to wash because there's not enough places where you can do that economically, where it's economically feasible, interesting for companies to do it.
Mm-hmm. Might be time to reimagine the bottle.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Also, I was curious about, you were talking about plain products, and if everyone heard, those are hair care products that come in an aluminum, similar to, say, the aluminum water bottles that you find at some airports, especially San Francisco International. And they take those back at plain products, correct?
Yeah. So we work in.
Is there an issue? But is there an issue with the condition? Do they take them back no matter what? Because we know that type of aluminum can kind of.
Yeah, I think, well, they actually just released a new version of their bottles to make them more durable. And I think I read a number recently where they have to recycle maybe 20% of the bottles because they come back to their company and they're too damaged. And like, yeah, some people, like, I can see it in the stores, some people really don't mind if there's a little bump of the bottle, but some people really do mind. So yeah, they do that. We also work in bulk with them. So we have their products packaged in the regular 16 ounces bottles. And we also have some of their products in bulk, and it's like 3-gallon containers, so another type of bulk container. And when they're empty, we'll just ship them back and they'll clean them and refill them. Plain products, the thing with that company, what they're doing is amazing. And from the get-go, when they started in 2017, I think, it was in their initial business plan, like they wanted to provide products in reusable containers. So they built everything, the whole logistic together at the same time as they were building the business. We have like for older brands that are just used to single use, it's much harder for them to transition to reusables.
Okay. All right. And there's a quick question, and Amy, I'm going to ask you a few things. You mentioned, someone asked us that you mentioned about some products being cheaper through the zero waste store model. So which would those be? Is that like the bar items you were talking about?
Yeah, definitely. Like, for example, we have solid dish soap, a bar, like it would be like a 10 ounces bar, replace 3-4 bottles of liquid dish soap, and it works great. It's just, it's so different than what people are used to, that there's really like, for some people it's really hard because it's all new and weird and so different. But yeah, it works great, and you save money. You also save trips, like you don't have to go buy a bottle every month or so. And there are other products, like one of my favorites is stainless steel razors. You have to invest at first, and the ones we have are like $30. But then the blades are only 30 cents each, which is cheaper than buying single-use plastic razors. Plus, that company takes back the blades and recycle them, turns them into utensils. So there's, yeah, it's just that people need to take the time to look at all this. That's why, as I was saying in the presentation, I think we need more demos, and not just social media, just like in-store, like in-person events to show what it is to, consume and use zero-waste products.
Right, thank you. So Amy, you touched on it very briefly, but the concept of inclusive sustainability, do you want to elaborate a little bit on that and what that means to you and your
Can you
company?
hear this okay?
Talk a little more and I can tell.
Testing.
Sounds better so far, but give it a try.
I
Thank you.
took off my earbuds.
I see.
So again, apologies to everyone. So the inclusive sustainability concept for me is about making sure, as we know, a lot of communities across the world that are most affected by climate change, the toxicity of our environment, et cetera, are communities of color and under-resourced communities. And so I'm making sure that we not only address those issues in our immediate co-working community, but that we're more inclusive in terms of who we invite to be part of our community. And I'm really proud that we have 45% African American membership, 65% female. And so we're really helping incubate businesses for people who are engaged in their community and want them to be more socially and environmentally conscious. And it's just hard in those communities when they're worried about basic living issues to be thinking about environmental toxicity and everything else. But we're kind of on the front lines for that, along with some nonprofits that work in our space around outdoor air quality and other things in Dallas.
That's great. So again, collaboration and community.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you were very proud to say that you are the only LEED certified gold co-working space in the world.
That is also focused on inclusive sustainability and solar powered, yes.
And what was that process like to be certified?
It's very time intensive, and our landlord paid for it. I don't think any co-working space that isn't a large chain could afford to take on LEED, nor would they necessarily want to if they were just a very small business. But they can encourage their landlords to take it on. And as we know, there's LEED for operations and maintenance, LEED for commercial interiors. They can also look at true certification. So there are various options. I had a leg up because my husband happens to be a LEED fellow and works out of our space. So I'm not a normal example of, and also WELL has been very challenging to pursue as a small business.
Well, that's a bonus. So I guess we can't put in a plan that everyone needs to partner with someone that is LEED certified.
Well, I think, you can have a USGBC chapter office in your space, or get green design and architecture and design professionals working in your space who can be a resource. If you're resourceful enough with partnerships and collaboration, you can make anything happen. In fact, I got free solar panels for our roof because of a grant from a nonprofit.
That's great. So curating your community is probably a helpful way to approach it, about who you would prefer to have come into your community to round it out, to help you with the shared vision.
Absolutely. And the community is pretty small in Dallas, but we're trying to cause a ripple effect in terms of how businesses operate. Because as you know, Dallas Fort Worth is a rapidly growing city, or area, I should say.
All right, well, I want to thank everybody. If we're running a little bit over, but we started a little bit late, I'll give you an opportunity for any parting comment or thought before I hand it back over to Stephanie. But I'll thank you all now for your participation, for the time you spent preparing in the prep sessions and the materials, and being open to having our participants and attendees contact you. So thank you for that. Anything you would like to leave the audience with? Amy?
Yeah, just that I just want people, when they're coming up with solutions, to not forget the impact that small businesses can have on communities and cities. So think about not just the large scale solutions, but smaller scale solutions, which I think are the other panelists also emphasized as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Well, the holiday season is coming up. It's a very wasteful time of the year. So maybe also a good time to start conversations around the dinner table, and maybe with little stocking stuffers, try to educate, the people that you love and the people that you're giving gift to. So yeah, it's a good time of the year to talk zero waste.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah. If you think about all of the global supply chain infrastructure we have, and you think about the fact that it's virtually all forward supply chain, and you realize that we have to build something of that scale in the reverse direction, and it's a huge task. It's a generational project, and it's something I think we can all participate in.
All right. Well, I think that this is a great day, and I'll pass it back. And we have a little more to go. We're going to hear kind of next steps and parting thoughts. Stephanie and Jill and I are going to be part of that. And then I think afterwards we have a networking happy hour time. But I'll hand it back to you, Stephanie.
Great. And thank you again for Matt, Amy, and Stephanie for their presentations and their inspiration. I think today is all about the possibilities. So I'm going to bring Jill Danello up, and Chris is going to join me also. We're just going to spend a few minutes wrapping it up and what we learned from today. So if everybody in the chat could either just put in like what was the most inspirational, what was the aha moment, what speaker was your favorite or topic, that would be great. So we can just get the chat going. And then I'm going to give a couple of announcements, and then Jill and Chris are also going to share what they found interesting today. So go ahead and start filling the chat with your aha and what you were excited about and what was new, and we'll go from there. So just a couple of announcements. Number one, start thinking about 2023. And a survey will be going out after the end of the conference, which we still have one more incredible day to go. And so we'll be saying that out and start thinking about, do we want to have virtual in person, virtual in person? What topics do you want, format? So we want to capture that right away. Also, there's many exciting conferences coming up. There's the Zero Waste International Alliance Conference next week in Costa Rica. It is virtual and in person. I put the chat in there. NZWC is having our 30th anniversary in Washington, D.C., our Greenbuild event in September. So also, if any of you guys have events, just pop them in. True has ongoing webinars and workshops. So please get on our True list along with Zero Waste USA. So lots of exciting things happening. So with that, Jill, I'll start with you. What were some of the highlights for you today, the lessons learned, what got you excited?
Yeah, I would say, one of the main things is just how great it is to bring so many people together, and how how much we all can learn when we put our minds together. And I just want to thank all of the speakers for sharing their expertise and all the participants who actively participated in the chat, asking questions, sharing resources, kind of testing some of the messages that were there, and having open debate. So yeah, I think my question for the group is, where between conferences, where are people meeting? How are people meeting? And how can we keep the conversations going throughout the year? The other thing I wanted to share, we did have a document that kind of recapped some of the baseline lessons for zero waste businesses. So I'm going to share that in the chat now as well. I wanted to have a shout out to Nicole Hernandez, who put this document together for us. She's out there in the audience somewhere today.
Great, thanks so much. Yes, and we put this document together because we want to just get the 101 and the basics. So we're not rehashing some of the first steps that we need to do and some of the decisions. I wouldn't say decisions, but the methods that we move forward on. Like, you need to put all your bins together, and you need to have a very small trash can, and you need to reduce and reuse first. So this is a very exciting document. Please let Jill know what you think, and we can add to that. So Chris, what are your highlights and lessons learned?
Well, I was pretty inspired. I put it in the chat that we really need to help people understand without expecting them to become experts. And I think that's a great place to start. If they end up being experts, then great. That would be wonderful to add more people to the mix that are really committed to making this happen and bringing their skill sets. But basically, how important education is everywhere, every sector, all ages, young people, as early as possible. I mean, it should be ongoing curriculum every year, K through 12. The other thing is that, I'm big on reduce, but the more time I spent in these sessions and hearing both the plenaries and the breakouts, it became data. So, there's clearly a strong need for and interest in data. That was made clear by how many attendees came to the afternoon concurrent data session. We had like 107 people. And then I think we had at a morning session, just focusing on food service, we had on measuring reduce, we had over 70 people in there. And so again, I think Jackie from Refed said it really well. Data is only as valuable as the actions it can lead to. So we can't just be data hounds and data geeks, just collecting the data because it's mandatory for reporting. But it really needs to be used as an important indicator of what must be tackled, as well as consider the opportunity that the data shows that are presented. We have these great opportunities that data can show us. And that means, improving operations and opening up entrepreneurial ventures, pushing policies and laws, and of course, always looking upstream so we don't have to rely on recycling as our major cleanup strategy. So really, getting reduce, reuse, and repair all the way up to the top, and basically showing that, putting into financial terms. Your data can help you put it into financial savings, because money talks, but saving money screams. So I really am supporting what everyone is doing to have to keep showing after all of these years that it makes sense and that we have to do it, and we have to have data because people won't believe it until they see it. But so I'm really impressed by how well data is being collected and the efforts for it to make it easier and easier. And in some of these programs, it's free. These collections, it's just like open source free. So wonderful. So that's what I walked away with from today.
Fabulous. And I've seen a lot. How are we going to get together? How are we going to continue networking? So True will collaborate with Zero Waste USA and many of our other partners and make sure that, number one, you have all the existing networking opportunities that are already out there, the groups. You can, I encourage people to get involved in their local USGBC community chapter. Those are really great, amazing places to join. We have 1 or 2 in every single state. In California, I think we have 6 or 7 chapters. So I definitely engage with that community. There's the Green Yes listserv. And then I'll just say, what I'm really excited about is 2 things. Number one, that we are expediting our change in language and that it's so acceptable and it's common, it's in our schools, circularity, closed loop. People, are talking about all the other R's. We forget about all the other R's, the rethink, the repair, the remanufacture, the redesign. So I encourage you to really expand your R's. And then the innovation. All of our speakers are pioneers and innovators, and it's happening very quickly. So we're going from one level to the next. So, really great opportunity to expedite it. And we need IT. We need apps. We need gaming. We need software to get this done. And then also the amount of jobs that are out there. So we did post the EPA, the GSA, and the transportation people. I think many of the companies that participated and presented have jobs available. So please get the word out to everybody that there is a lot happening, and to get started with that. So sorry, my voice is breaking up. I might just be a little tired. I want to thank our sponsors again. Without them, this couldn't have been possible. I want to thank Ruth and her whole team at Zero Waste USA, all the incredible volunteers, our moderators, and of course, all of you participants. We couldn't do this without you, and we need to move forward with you. So please let us know how we can best support you. And with that, we are going to hand it back over to Ruth, and Ruth is going to tell us how we can go enjoy more networking and a happy hour. So just thank you again, and wishing you a very zero waste holiday and season, and that it's very joyful. Ruth?
I'm going to say everyone should you should copy and paste this chat, because you can. It's copyable and pasteable, and I would put it in a document because there's so many resources in it, and from the main stage following the last concurrent breakout sessions.
Okay, wow, you guys, this is what an amazing day. I so much appreciate all the work that you put into coordinating all those sessions. And Chris, do you mind letting me share my screen for a minute so I can tell people what's coming up next? First of all, big round of applause and thank you for everybody who contributed today. And oops, here we go. Yeah, there we go. And now we're going to go. Now we want to hear from you. So you had a lot of good listening time. You were very patient. You did all your chatting. And now we want to split up into groups so that we can hear from you. So we'll unmute everybody, I think, and allow you to funnel into one of 4 breakout rooms. We've asked several of our partners to be hosts, and several of our sponsors will kind of funnel in wherever they feel like going. So Zero Waste USA, Amanda Waddell will be hosting a breakout room. She'll be talking about some things about Zero Waste USA, the trainings that are coming up, and Zero Waste Youth might be in that room. We might get Nick from Zavel in there. We will see who shows up, but there's an opportunity for you in Zero Waste USA. ZWIA and Zero Waste Associates, so Gary Liss and Rick Anthony will be hosting a room, and you can go there and hear all about the Costa Rica conference that's coming up next week. It's a hybrid, so you can actually register and participate remotely if you feel like it, or you can come on down and join us in Costa Rica next week, the 5th through the 8th. We also have a tour of the Recreate facility that Ross talked about today. So amazing, amazing stuff going on in Costa Rica, and Rick and Gary can talk to you about some of the things they're working on. Jill will be hosting Green Education US. She can talk a little bit about some of the offerings they have. She can also host some of the other partners. Some true folks might show up there, or other folks that are interested. Just to let your hair down, talk a little bit about the conference and anything else related to what we got going on. And then finally, Northern California Recycling Association, NCRA, will be hosting a breakout room. They have some interesting stuff coming up, including Recycling Update, which is speed dating for a conference that's coming up at the end of March on March 28th. So we can talk about that. Lots of interesting stuff going on in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. So come and relax and hang out, grab something to drink. Come to one or more of our breakout rooms, wander in between. Chris will open those up, and I think you'll just allow to filter into any ones you want. We'll unmute you guys so that you can just participate and have fun. So welcome. Thank you for everything.
I just needed to bring up that the breakout rooms broke, so I need to redo them. So I have NCRA and Green Education US. What was the other two?
ZWIA and NCRA.
ZWIA, NCRA, Green Education US, and
Zero Waste USA.
Youth. Zero Waste
Zero Waste
USA.
USA.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you everybody for being patient with a little bit of our technical difficulties. We use the WebEx platform. I lost internet at the end of the day, kind of freaked out. So yeah, I think that the wire's getting a little tired. I know Amy had a little bit of trouble. So, you know, but now's the time for us to sort of relax and regroup. So, are you ready?
Yes, go.
Awesome.
Chris, ZWIA and Zero Waste Associates is in one room.
Okay, you want us two separate rooms, Gary?
No, it should be one room, ZWIA and Zero Waste Associates.
Yeah, just one room. It's just a label, Gary. We know
Right.
who you are.
I'm trying to
All
find
right.
out how to get there.
Okay, so how you get there is at the bottom of the screen, and I'll stop sharing. So at the bottom of your screen, everybody should see a button called Breakout Sessions. And I think if you click on that, you can go into a session. Is that right, Chris?
That's correct.
That's not working for me because I'm a co-host, I think. It comes up, can't edit breakout session assignments.
Okay,
Click on that.
click on the meeting, the participants, and you should see the participants come up on the side, and then you can click
Okay.
breakout sections and click join for any of those sessions.
Okay, that direction I didn't hear before. Thank you.
All right, so there you go. Everybody can see that under participants. And you
It
just hit
looks
that
like
join.
people are already joining too, so,
All right, they're trickling in.
right.
So participants button is on the right on the bottom. Click on that. It'll open up a screen, I think, where you can go into a breakout session. Green Education US, Northern California Recycling Association, Zero Waste USA, ZWIA, and Zero Waste Associates. And then, Chris, do you need to give some kind of superpower to make sure everybody can be unmuted?
Everybody's been unmuted.
Awesome.
You're good to go.
All righty. And anybody who's still left in this room, you can talk to me and Chris, but we're not going to be having as much fun as the folks in the breakout room.
I still can't find it.
Who's speaking?
Maggie.
Maggie, what room would you like to go to?
How about Gary Lewis?
All right.
I also have no button for breakout rooms. I've had difficulties all day getting to anything but the main room, so.
Yeah, that's all that shows in the list for me going to the participants.
Who was the other person?
Daniel Hartzig.
Daniel and Maggie, I
If
think
I
that
click
Chris,
on tracks in the participants list, will that take me there?
Yes.
Okay. I only see one track.
No, not tracks. You'll need to go to the breakout rooms. In the participants list, you'll see main meeting and breakout sessions. Do you see the breakout sessions list there?
Nope. I just see main meeting, main track, a bunch of people. I see
Which
track
session do you want
A.
to go to, Daniel?
Which are the sessions? What are the sessions?
Green Education US, NICRA, Zero Waste USA, and ZWIA, and Zero Waste Associates.
Sounds like just a bunch of the organizations, right? The main
Right.
zero waste organizations.
Right. Yes.
I know about all of them already.
Well, it's just to hang out with each other and interact and have fun. Just to talk to other people. Or, you know.
Hi there. Excuse me. Sorry to interrupt. Can you just drop the links in the chat, because I'm on mobile, cannot find anything, and I don't know. It's hard to know where to navigate right now. I would appreciate that. Thanks.
Rengo, there's no actual links. Just let me know which of the breakout sessions you would like. And
Oh, I would like to go to the Zero Waste USA and ZWIA.
Okay.
I think you can just assign them, right, Chris?
That's what I'm doing, exactly. So you want to go to
Thank
Zero
you.
Waste USA. Okay. Here you go,
Name
sir.
for me, please. This is Justin. Thank you.
Justin, you got it.
I think I would like to go to Zero Waste USA since I know so much already about True. So this is Daniel.
Daniel, you're next. Zero Waste USA for Daniel.
I apologize. Can I switch mine to the True related one, please? This is Justin. Thank you.
Okay, Justin, you got it. Interesting. It doesn't look like it looks like you've already been moved over.
Okay, you had sent that thing and I put later. I don't know. I guess I must have pressed the wrong button here. Let me see if I can. Oh, here we go. Let me join that one. See what happens.
All righty. Would anybody else like to be moved over to a track, to a breakout room?